The massive transport shuttle rumbled through the starry expanse, its metallic hull reflecting pinpricks of distant galaxies. Jay Park clutched his worn leather toolkit, a memento from his grandfather's landscaping business back on Earth. At 38, he'd seen enough dead planets and failed terraforming projects to know this job was different. Meridian 9 wasn't just another colony. It was a graveyard of botanical dreams, a planet where thousands of agricultural restoration attempts had failed, spectacularly. The galactic communication logs were filled with frustrated reports. Withering crops, mysterious ecosystem collapses, and inexplicable plant mutations. As the shuttle's navigation system beeped, holographic displays flickered with planetary data. Jay noticed strange spectral readings. Something was definitely off about this world. Robotic maintenance drones buzzed around the shuttle's interior, performing last-minute calibrations before planetary entry. The landing was rough, magnetic. Storm interference caused violent turbulence, throwing Jay against his safety harness. Outside the viewport, crimson-purple atmospheric clouds swirled like angry bruises. Mechanical stabilizers groaned, fighting against planetary winds that seemed almost intelligent in their resistance. When the shuttle finally touched down, the landscape was nothing like Earth. Twisted rock formations jutted at impossible angles, while bioluminescent fungi pulsed with an eerie blue-green light. Gravity felt slightly off, about 1.3 times Earth's normal pull. Every movement required subtle recalibration. A holographic welcome drone approached, its translucent body displaying basic colony information. "Welcome to Meridian 9, Earth Restoration." "Specialist Jay Park," it chirped in a pleasant synthesized voice. "Your client, Hai Kim, awaits your arrival at Sector 7 Agricultural Zone." Jay's transport pod, a sleek egg-shaped vehicle powered by hydrogen fusion, glided across the alien terrain. Automated navigation systems mapped potential routes, avoiding dangerous geological formations and radiation zones. Through transparent walls, he observed landscapes that seemed simultaneously dead and alive. Robotic agricultural monitoring units dotted the landscape, abandoned sentinels of previous restoration attempts. Some stood frozen mid-motion, their solar panels covered in strange crystalline growths. Others were partially buried, like mechanical fossils telling stories of failed missions. When Jay finally reached Hai Kim's property, he was stunned. What should have been a vibrant garden looked more like a botanical graveyard. Plants twisted in unnatural shapes, some partially metallic, others seeming to pulse with an inner unnatural light. Something had fundamentally disrupted this ecosystem. Hai stood at the garden's edge, her protective environmental suit making her look more like an astronaut than a botanist. Her posture suggested years of disappointment, of watching dreams slowly decay. She wasn't just a client, she was a survivor of countless agricultural nightmares. "Another human thinks they can fix what generations of alien botanists couldn't," she said through the suit's communication system, her voice carrying a mix of skepticism and hidden hope. Jay simply smiled. He'd heard this speech before. On Mars, on Europa's underground colonies, on the methane farms of Titan. Each time people said it couldn't be done. Each time he proved them wrong. His toolkit wasn't just equipment. It was a collection of stories, soil samples from dead worlds, modified seed banks, experimental nanofertilizers developed through decades of interplanetary research. This wasn't just a job, this was a mission. As solar winds whispered across the alien landscape and distant robotic monitoring stations hummed their quiet songs, Jay Park prepared to do what he did best, bring life back to places everyone else had abandoned. The first step of any restoration wasn't technology, it was understanding. And Jay was about to understand everything. End of Part 1. The morning light on Meridian 9 was unlike anything Jay had ever seen. A soft lavender glow that made the landscape shimmer like a living watercolor. His specialized scanning equipment hummed with complex algorithms, probing the garden's mysterious decay. Microscopic analysis revealed something extraordinary. These weren't typical plant failures. Each cellular structure showed deliberate, systematic destruction, almost like a precision-engineered biological weapon. Tiny nanoscale mechanisms embedded within plant tissues suggested intentional manipulation. Huai watched silently as Jay worked, her environmental suit reflecting holographic data streams. Her previous research team had spent months trying to understand the garden's collapse, burning through millions in galactic credits with zero results. "This isn't natural degradation," Jay muttered, adjusting his spectral analyzer. The device looked like a cross between a medical scanner and an old-school photographer's light meter. Its quantum sensors could detect molecular changes invisible to standard scientific equipment. A sudden movement caught his attention. One of the dying plants twitched, not from wind or natural movement, but with an almost intelligent response. Jay zoomed his scanner, revealing microscopic robotic organisms weaving through plant cellular structures. These weren't just parasites. They were sophisticated biomechanical infiltrators, systematically destroying the garden's ecosystem from within. Each organism functioned like a precision surgical unit, targeting specific plant defense mechanisms. Chai's holographic displays began correlating data. "These organisms, they're not from our known galactic databases," she whispered. Her voice carried a mixture of scientific excitement and genuine fear. Jay recognized the pattern. During his restoration work on Europa's underground agricultural zones, he'd encountered similar biological infiltration techniques. But those were experimental military prototypes. These were something else entirely. The robotic monitoring units around the garden began generating complex data visualizations. Holographic representations showed how these microscopic invaders moved and coordinated, almost like a collective intelligence. They weren't randomly destroying. They were strategically dismantling the ecosystem. "Someone definitely wants this garden destroyed," Jay concluded, pulling up comparative analysis charts. The precision was too perfect, the damage too systematic. To be accidental. Hai's suit suddenly flashed with encrypted communication signals. Distant monitoring stations across the planet seemed to be picking up similar ecological disruption patterns. This wasn't an isolated incident. Jay's mind raced. Who would benefit from destroying an agricultural research garden? Corporate competitors, rival planetary development consortiums, ecological saboteurs. The motivations could be endless. His toolkit wasn't just a collection of restoration equipment anymore. It was becoming an investigative arsenal. Specialized nanoprobes, genetic reconstruction modules, quantum frequency disruptors. Each tool now served a dual purpose of healing and understanding. The garden itself seemed to be telling a story. Twisted plant structures, partially metallic growths, cellular mutations. Every element suggested a complex narrative of deliberate ecological warfare. Robotic maintenance units around the property began recalibrating their sensors, responding to Jay's advanced scanning techniques. They seemed almost eager to assist, their artificial intelligence recognizing a potentially groundbreaking investigation. "We're going to need more than standard restoration protocols," Jay told Hai, his voice calm but charged with professional determination. "This is beyond simple plant revival. We're looking at a systematic ecological attack." Hai's initial skepticism was transforming into genuine scientific curiosity. The human standing before her wasn't just another restoration engineer. He was becoming a forensic ecological detective, unraveling a mystery written in microscopic codata. As solar radiation filtered through alien atmospheric layers, casting strange geometric shadows across the garden, Jay Park prepared to do what he did best, turn destruction into an opportunity for understanding and renewal. The first battle would be fought at the microscopic level, and Jay was ready. End of part 2. The laboratory workshop buzzed with controlled energy. Jay's hands moved with practiced precision, combining Earth-based agricultural techniques with advanced alien biotechnology. Holographic displays danced around him, showing complex molecular reconstructions and genetic mapping. Specialized nano-robots, no larger than individual blood cells, lined up in perfect formation. These weren't just standard restoration tools. They were living machines designed to combat the microscopic invaders destroying the garden. Each nano-robot carried a unique genetic payload, programmed to identify and neutralize the destructive organisms. E watched in amazement as Jay mixed traditional Korean agricultural wisdom with cutting-edge galactic science. He pulled out a bangto, small container of fermented soil from his grandfather's farm, a technique passed down through generations of Korean farmers. Modern scientific equipment might seem more impressive, but sometimes ancient knowledge held the most powerful solutions. "Watch this," Jay explained, carefully introducing the fermented soil mixture into a molecular reconstruction chamber. The chamber hummed, its quantum processors breaking down the organic material into fundamental building blocks. Traditional fermentation techniques created complex microbiological environments that modern sterilization methods often destroyed. Robotic assistance units moved around the lab, their metallic limbs performing intricate molecular manipulations. They weren't just machines, they were precision instruments guided by sophisticated artificial intelligence, learning and adapting with each molecular adjustment. The first test batch showed promising results. The nano-robots, infused with the fermented soil's complex microbiological structure, began systematically identifying and neutralizing the invasive organisms. It was like watching microscopic warriors fight an invisible battle. Distant monitoring stations across Meridian 9 began picking up the restoration signals. Other agricultural research teams tuned in, watching the revolutionary approach with a mixture of skepticism and hope. Jay's method was breaking every standard restoration protocol. "This isn't just about fixing plants," Jay explained to Hai. "We're essentially creating a living immune system for the entire ecosystem." His hands moved quickly, adjusting quantum frequency modulators that looked like a cross between scientific equipment and traditional farming tools. The garden outside began showing first signs of recovery. Plants that had been twisted and dying started showing subtle signs of regeneration. Bioluminescent growth shifted from sickly yellow to a healthier green-blue. Something fundamental was changing. Automated drones captured the transformation, sending real-time data streams to scientific networks across multiple star systems. What was happening here was more than a simple restoration. It was a fundamental reimagining of ecological recovery. Hai's communication devices lit up with incoming signals. Research teams from distant planetary networks wanted to understand the methodology. Jay's approach was breaking traditional scientific boundaries, combining human intuition with advanced technological precision. The nanorobots worked tirelessly, each one a tiny marvel of engineering. They didn't just remove the invasive organisms, they rebuilt cellular structures, introduced beneficial microorganisms, and created a self-sustaining ecological defense mechanism. Outside, the landscape of Meridian 9 seemed to respond. Robotic. Monitoring units adjusted their sensors, picking up the subtle changes in planetary ecosystem dynamics. Something extraordinary was happening, a healing process that went beyond simple restoration. Jay's toolkit was no longer just a collection of equipment. It had become a living, adaptive system, part technology, part biological intelligence, part human creativity. Each tool told a story of innovation, of pushing beyond accepted scientific limitations. As artificial sunset algorithms projected stunning visual displays across the alien landscape, Jay and Hai watched the first true signs of ecological recovery. What had seemed like an impossible challenge was becoming a testament to human ingenuity. The garden was coming back to life, and with it, an entire new approach to planetary restoration was being born. End of Part 3. The evening light on Meridian 9 created a surreal landscape of shadows and bioluminescent whispers. Jay and Hai sat outside the laboratory, sharing a simple meal of hydroponic rice and synthesized protein, a blend of Earth tradition and galactic innovation. "I lost my research partner during the Centauri conflict," Hai said quietly, her fingers tracing patterns on her environmental suit's datapad. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken memories. Jay understood loss. He'd watched his wife battle a rare genetic condition that even advanced medical technology couldn't defeat. Robotic maintenance units moved silently around them, their sensors creating a protective perimeter. But they weren't just machines. They seemed to sense the emotional weight of the moment, adjusting their movements to create a sense of privacy. The garden behind them continued its miraculous recovery. Plants that had been near death now pulsed with renewed energy, their cellular structures showing unprecedented resilience. It was more than scientific success. It was a metaphor for healing. Hai pulled out an old holographic image, a younger version of herself, with a tall man wearing a planetary exploration uniform. Her research partner, now just a memory. The hologram flickered, showing moments of scientific discovery, shared laughter, momentary victories. He always believed we could change how humans interact with alien ecosystems, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jay recognized the pain. It was the same grief that had driven him across multiple star systems after losing his wife. Their connection wasn't romantic. It was something deeper. Two souls who understood loss, who had transformed personal tragedy into professional passion. Each had chosen to heal worlds because they couldn't heal their own personal wounds. Distant planetary monitoring stations captured their conversation, two figures silhouetted against an alien sunset, surrounded by a garden that represented more than just scientific restoration. It was a testament to human resilience. The nanorobots in the garden continued their work, now moving with an almost intelligent coordination. They weren't just repairing plants. They were creating a new ecological language, bridging the gap between human intervention and natural regeneration. Jay shared stories of his Earth farm, of his grandfather who had taught him that every plant has a story, every ecosystem a complex narrative waiting to be understood. Hai listened, her scientific mind finding poetry in his practical wisdom. Automated translation devices captured their conversation, converting complex human emotions into universal communication protocols. But some things couldn't be translated: the shared understanding of loss, the quiet determination to create something meaningful. As night fell, the garden came alive with bioluminescent displays. Plants that had been dying now created intricate light patterns, blues, greens, and soft purples dancing in complex mathematical sequences. It was beauty born from scientific precision and human creativity. Their work was becoming more than a restoration project. It was a bridge between human intuition and alien ecosystem complexity. Each molecular adjustment, each carefully placed nano-robot, represented a new way of understanding planetary life. Robotic monitoring units began generating artistic representations of their conversation, complex holographic displays that captured not just words, but emotional frequencies. Science and emotion blending into something entirely new. I realized that Jay wasn't just a restoration engineer. He was a storyteller, using plants and technology to write narratives of hope and renewal. Her scientific skepticism was slowly transforming into something more, a genuine belief in human potential. The communication devices around them began receiving signals from distant planetary networks. Other restoration teams wanted to understand their methodology, their unique approach that seemed to break every traditional scientific boundary. As the alien night settled around them, Jay and Hai sat in comfortable silence. The garden continued its miraculous recovery, a living testament to human creativity, technological innovation, and the unexpected connections that transcend species and star systems. They weren't just saving a garden, they were rewriting the language of ecological restoration. End of Part 4. The Galactic Conference Hall buzzed with anticipation. Representatives from hundreds of planetary systems gathered, their holographic projections creating a kaleidoscope of alien cultures and technological marvels. At the center of it all stood Jay Park and Hai Kim, about to present their revolutionary ecological restoration technique. Massive display screens showed the transformation of Meridian 9's garden, a before and after narrative that defied everything. Scientists thought they knew about planetary ecosystem recovery. Robotic analysis units lined the presentation stage, each one a living testament to their groundbreaking work. "We didn't just restore a garden," Jay began, his voice calm and confident. "We discovered a new language of ecological communication." The audience, a mix of biological, synthetic, and hybrid life forms, leaned forward, captivated, holographic, Representations danced behind them, showing microscopic nanorobots working in perfect harmony. These weren't just machines, they were intelligent systems that could adapt, learn, and heal. Each molecular movement told a story of innovation that crossed species boundaries. Alien scientific consortiums, from the Andromeda Cluster to the Orion Cooperative, began downloading their presentation. What had seemed like a simple restoration project was becoming a blueprint for planetary recovery across multiple star systems. HFY demonstrated how their technique combined traditional agricultural wisdom with advanced quantum biotechnology. Their approach wasn't about forcing change, but about understanding and supporting natural ecological systems. It was a fundamental shift in planetary restoration philosophy. Communication networks across the galaxy lit up. Research teams, planetary, governments, and ecological restoration organizations began analyzing every detail of their presentation. This was more than a scientific breakthrough. It was a new approach to understanding life itself. Robotic intelligence units created complex, predictive models, showing how J and Hi's technique could be applied to hundreds of struggling planetary ecosystems. Worlds that had been considered beyond recovery now seemed full of potential. The conference hall transformed into a living visualization of their work. Holographic representations showed how their nanorobot technology could adapt to different planetary conditions, creating localized ecological recovery systems that respected each world's unique characteristics. Humans have always been adapters, Jay explained, showing images of agricultural innovations from Earth's history. We don't just solve problems, we create conversations between technology and nature. The audience was mesmerized. Distant planetary monitoring stations began sending real-time data confirmations. Other restoration teams were already experimenting with similar techniques, adapting them to their specific ecological challenges. A scientific revolution was unfolding in real time. A spoke about the human element, how personal loss and professional passion could drive innovation. Her story of her lost research partner resonated with beings from across the galaxy. It wasn't just about technology, it was about hope. The nanorobots themselves became celebrities of sorts. Scientific networks began studying their adaptive intelligence, their ability to learn and transform. They were more than machines, they were a new form of life, bridging technological and biological boundaries. Galactic funding boards began immediate allocation of resources. What had started as a small restoration project on a struggling colony world was now a potential solution for hundreds of planetary ecosystems. J and Hi had changed the conversation about ecological restoration. Robotic translation devices worked overtime, converting their presentation into thousands of communication protocols. The message was universal. Human creativity, combined with advanced technology, could solve seemingly impossible challenges. As the presentation concluded, the conference hall erupted in a cacophony of applause, a sound that transcended biological and synthetic boundaries. Alien representatives, robotic intelligence units, and holographic projections all celebrated this moment of collective discovery. Jay and Hai looked at each other, understanding that they had done more than restore a garden. They had opened a new chapter in how intelligent life approaches planetary healing, communication, and understanding. The galaxy would never be the same. End of Part 5.